All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Wall Street Beats. I'm Steve Lamar, back from making tequila in Mexico, which is the good news. The bad news is I got the Montezuma, and it's not going away. But I'm muscling through it here this morning. We got Jeff Mackey, our retail pro, with us today, and we got Bob Morris, our oil and gas pro. And we're going to talk about, I bet, maybe the big ass bag, which we were talking about before the show started. I don't know what just happened to our screen, but Jen, are you there?
Yes, our new sponsor, Einstein Energy.
Our new sponsor, Einstein Energy Bars. So we've got a deal going. So go to Amazon, go to our website and check it out. Thank you for the plug, Jen. Let's get back to the show. So Bob, we were talking before the show about the new big ass bag from Lulu, which Jeff and Jen were all excited about. So maybe that's the first shot that says that they might be figuring things out and getting the consumer back in their on their website and in their stores.
I mean, we're only about 20% kidding when we say that the big ass bag might be a sign of life at Lulu. It sounds silly, but there's been a real dearth of creativity going on there. There's been a company that you can tell they lost a lot of their talent to the startups. You can tell that they've kind of been gutted and directionless, and the fact they haven't had a CEO since they fired the last guy at the beginning of this year. If that seems like a long time ago, it's because it was a long time ago. They've been waiting for a Nike exec to replace the old guy. You know, it's a sign of life, and it's exciting. It sounds like something that Chip would have come up with, only Chip presumably didn't come up with it. It's a little cheeky, so to speak, no pun intended. And it's sold out, so it gives you a reason to go to Lulu, and they haven't had that for quite a while. The traffic's been bad. This has been so resolutely negative for 3 years that it's a pulse, and down 75% or whatever the stock is down. It's you're starting to see a little bit of a divergence between Lulu just making new multi-year lows every day and Nike, which the two have been locked at the hip. They really have. I mean, it's just nothing going right. So now all I've got to worry about is Bob's Oil and Gas is kind of dicking up my retail.
Picking up your retail names. Exactly.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of screwing everything up between him and interest rates. So let's get some more guys to fight about. But this is retail earnings season. It should be big news-wise, but no one's in town for Wall Street. And once you get kind of the outside variables cooking, it calms things down. You saw Home Depot today. Quintessentially Home Depot. You want to see somebody kind of incapable of turning around, really well-run company. What are you gonna do? It's just kind of drifting around at sea, trying to make money from people putting in new cabinets every once in a while. That's fine, but that's not gonna break them out, and that's where a lot of the industry is right now.
We got Target tomorrow, Jeff.
It is called Big Ass Bag. I thought you were joking. That is the name of it. Big Ass Bag. I always thought you were joking, but it is. It is
the name of the bag? Does it say Big Ass Bag on the bag itself?
Yeah, it says it on here. It is Big Ass Bag ADL.
Wow.
Yeah, the ADL. So it's this is the anti-ball crushing pants, ABC pants. We're kind of what put them on the map in the first place. So they've kind of done a 180, if you will, and gone to the other side of the body. I don't know. We can frame that a lot of different ways, but it's a reason to go to their stores. And a lot of times, people ask, what leads a turnaround? You see Victoria's Secret. You see kind of these companies that actually come back from the retail dead, and I make my living really picking them up. Retail's mostly a zero-sum game. You got people taking share from other people, and lather, rinse, repeat. What starts to turn around are things like this, where you get people into the store. Now, for Lulu to really have a turnaround, to really turn this into something, you need them to come in for the big ass bag and maybe buy some, anti-ball crushing pants. And that would be perfect. That would be what turns them around. But the athleisure in general has been kind of leaking share. They won basically 10 years ago when Lulu was an exciting, fun stock with a lot of growth in front of it. Athleisure was just kind of a concept. The idea was, are these different fabrics going to actually work? They won. What happens when you win is everyone steals your thunder. That's what happened to Nike too. It's really hard to be a fresh new athletic shoe brand now. You know,
Everybody
they
else
all
is
have
winning at
ads.
Nike's expense. That's
Well, they
right.
steal your playbook. There's the
Yeah,
big ass
it
bag
is.
right there. Nice work, graphic. And look at that.
Mm.
Is it not what they describe? You could fit probably a whole nest full of puppies in there. You could put
Holy
whatever you want
shit.
in the big ass bag.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So now
That's
I
going to be
was going to ask
smacking
you
you,
about the
smacking you
function
in
of
the head
that. It
soon.
looks, I was going to ask you about the function of that, and if it's male and female, but it looks like they're it looks like it's both ways, and it looks like you can pretty much throw anything in there, including one of your kids.
Yeah, speaking of kids,
Dog.
one of mine's in town, and I would guess that it's the acid test of whether it's male or female is whether or not my daughter steals it from me when she goes back to New York. And I would say the chances are probably going to be pretty good,
Pretty
which
high.
is fine. I'm not sure I have that much stuff to carry around. I'm
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
it's I
I
like a lot of
definitely don't.
simplicity in my life.
The
But
key
you know,
question,
it's
Jeff, is
been-
going to be whether that bag fits in the airport luggage thing that they
Right.
measure bags by to be able to carry it on.
Oh my god.
It's pretty
right?
mushy, so it kind of depends on what you put it in there. It's you probably don't want an entire litter full of puppies if you're going to try to stuff it into that overhead bin like a tester that they have at the airport. But the you know, you got some clothes in there, you can jam it in. It'll fit. I'm not sure what the usefulness of it is, but man, it's a hot item. And hot items are hard to come by these days, especially in this kind of monoculture crazy world we live in. It's been increasingly hard to stand out for any length of time. Lulu's made terrific bags. This is one of the things that has been overlooked about them for years. During the height of their powers, they came out with just sort of random things, but the what they all had in common was that they were really good. And so they would come out with recycling shorts, you know, the unitard things that you know, small market, niche market. But man, they made the best ones you would have. They made, you know, tremendous golf shorts, the best workout stuff. I'm wearing a Lulu. This is literally 9 years old. I didn't plan to wear it. I didn't know we were going to be talking about the big ass bags, but you know, high quality is nice. It's good
Yeah.
stuff. And when it comes with good accessories, some of our favorite bags are Lulu stuff. I don't even know where they source them. It's really hard to replicate if you're another company. Anyone can make those kind of synthetic shirts now, and everyone does. But you know, if you actually have creativity in the corner office, and we were hypothesizing before the show that Lulu's lost a lot of their talent, and why wouldn't they? If you're kind of mid-management at Lulu over the last 5-6 years, and Aloe or Viore come knocking, you know, your options are underwater, and these companies haven't gone public yet. So yeah, you're going to leave, and that's what happened. So if this
So do you
new
start
CEO
nibbling
comes
on the
in,
stock here, Jeff?
start looking at it. Yep.
Okay.
It gets back on your radar. You know, Nike comes out with something hot and undeniable like this, it gets on your radar. Does that get you along the stock? Not necessarily. You don't have to catch the exact bottom or the exact top, and trying to do so is kind of a sucker's game. But you know, it's a little momentum would be terrific, and it gives them something to talk about in the conference call, particularly because again, the new CEO can't set foot on the campus without violating her, you know, non-compete.
Right.
It was a curious hire, but you know, it gives her a little, you know, something for the holidays that we can kind of work on. And it suggests again that it's not just going to be completely moribund, that ideas are coming out of there. I don't want to make too huge a deal about, but it's a $300 bag that you can't get anywhere.
Yeah.
In
Yeah,
this
and
type
you're
of
right
consumer
about
environment.
not buying every dip, and just wait, let this thing base, let it settle, let's see some volume come back into the stock, let's see it get moving in the right direction, then we can get in.
If you can buy it at
everybody-
140,
you saved everybody
150,
here
you know.
watching on saved everybody here watching there on Nike, not buying those dips. So just be
Right,
patient.
and you take heat for it. You know, it's people want to buy these stocks. Everyone wants to buy a comeback stock. I tend to kind of work backwards when I'm using the softer side of my brain, just from okay, what does an old school broker tell themselves? You know, it's an iconic brand. It's Nike. You know, they'll be here forever. They're not going anywhere. They've been saying that for the last 65% lower on Nike, quarter after quarter, miss after miss. Those players are gone. No one's coming to save them. The stock has a 3 handle now. All of a sudden, you don't need to catch that bottom. And in terms of Lulu, it's in the one teens now. It's kind of tried to percolate a little bit. That is a perfectly fine stock. If they turn that around, they've got enough earnings power there. You reverse your comps for the first time in ages, and that's gonna look plenty cheap for a lot of dollars on the way up. And you mentioned Target reporting tomorrow. You know, I'm not expecting tremendous fireworks there, but that's what a turnaround looks like. Is you go into a lot of targets. Are they perfect yet? Not even close. But is the new guy doing the right things? Yes, he is. It's a $100 billion revenue company. There's a lot of stuff you
Yep.
got to do there. There's 2,500, 3,000 stores, tons of stuff. But what you're working against is just kind of everyone rejects retail on the surface of it as an investment. And then they say no one's going shopping. Two pushback I get all the time.
Bullshit.
And then you try to go to the mall and you can't park. You look at Simon Property Group,
Exactly.
at, all-time highs. Like, well, shit, somebody's shopping. Or if they're not shopping, they're going to the movies because the box office is huge. This doesn't seem like a consumer that's super distressed. Rounds of golf are up. It's there's what they should do. There's what they tell the University of Michigan sentiment surveys they're going to do, and then there's how they actually behave, which is they spend $35 to go to an IMAX version of Spider Wars or whatever the hell's out there.
Yep.
And I think that's what we'll hear as we get into the reporting season. Good retailers will be good. You have some turnarounds. In effect, it's not a uniformly terrific consumer by any stretch of the imagination, but it's so much better than you would think if you would have been talking about $4.10 gas. The retailers themselves, they're operating much better than they were before COVID. The supply chains are such that they really have been able to work around first the shutdown, now the tariffs, and then just now war. They've had all kinds of headwinds coming their way, and the good ones are nimble enough to get their way around there. It leaves a company like Williams Sonoma, which I've been hoping would break out for a long time, another really well-managed company that should be breaking out. It's not, but they're really coiling up like springs. And it's which is a cliche, but what else do you say about a company where these multiples just keep going lower because they keep recording great earnings, and then they're cautious? If you're Home Depot, what message should the CEO have, other than we're a little bit cautious because we seem to declare pointless wars every once in a while, and interest rates are really high, and it's hard to get people excited about doing huge projects. They're doing little projects, and they're coming here to buy their stuff when they do. Spoiler alert, Lowe's reports tomorrow. They're going to say exactly the same thing. I ran the numbers. The stock talking about 85% or 0.85 correlation over the last 10 years. It's like they're essentially, they spend billions trying to differentiate themselves from one another.
Same company.
They're operating in the same pool. Same thing.
All right, Mr. Morris, you warned us when we saw $90 oil a couple of weeks ago that was just a warning shot, and here we are again, almost at $90, if not higher. I'm not looking at it right now, but
yeah. So we've got Brent up here.
These aren't going to be good for Jeff's retail names. That $90+ number.
Yeah, we've got WTI over $85 a barrel, and then we talked last week about the MOU or 60-day MOU expiring yesterday, which it did expire. Trump came out and said there's no interest in extending that MOU, and he posted on Truth social media this morning a map of the Strait of Hormuz, claiming that it is new U.S. territory. And so, Iran responded by stating that they will continue to attack and control the Strait of Hormuz until the U.S. meets all their ridiculous demands. So we're sort of at a non-starter at this point. And, clearly Iran still has the capability of striking ships. Every day they've continued to strike ships, commercial ships going through the Strait of Hormuz. And so traffic is slowed to almost a standstill again, and we're at a standoff. And so now the question is, what is Trump's next move? And we've stated before that there's a faction in Iran, the extremist faction. We don't know if they're the ones in control or who's calling the shots truly there, or if there's just several factions. But there's clearly one faction that doesn't want peace, in my opinion, that wants to carry this war out. It's a religious war for them. And if anything, they want to stretch this out until closer to the midterms, hoping that Trump's hand weakens in the process. And so at this point, what does Trump do? Does he finally pull the trigger and say, look, we've got to go in there and either attack Karg Island or militarily take control of the Strait of Hormuz? Or does he sit there and wait and hope that economically Iran collapses and that there's some sort of regime change? I think the latter is less likely in the near term. And it becomes a question of, does Trump say, look, for a couple of reasons, my only alternative here is that we go in again with military strikes because they're not willing to play along here, and or he knows that becomes more of a difficult option the closer we get to midterms, and At the same time, there are other Mideast countries that want to somehow get to a peaceful resolution here, which would be a good outcome. But again, we continue to get fooled. We don't know. We could wake up tomorrow and there could be a 12th post saying that they desperately want a deal and we're about to sign a deal. Everything calms down again. And we don't know
Bob, why
how
not just turn
we don't
tail
know
and go
how
home?
tenuous things are internally. We don't know how close things are internally in Iran to things collapsing or one faction or the other losing control and whatever faction there is gets the upper hand. So a lot of uncertainties. But one thing you do know is that the U.S. has not been able to militarily crush Iran. They still have capabilities of attacking or launching missiles, drones, etc., into the Strait of Hormuz. So I think Trump's got a difficult decision here if he can't get somebody there that supposedly or may be in control to come to the table to want to strike a deal, which seems to happen numerous times over and over again, only to then fail. So in the meantime, oil up here is reflecting the fact that there's very little, if any, traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. The supplies are getting tighter. Strategic reserves continue to be drained. And, oil, if that's the situation, oil's going to hold up here, and these stocks are still names you hold on to. We haven't sold anything. We noted last week that we had initiated a new position in Oxy. It's not a market weight position yet, but that was a new name I began to add to. Haven't added to it this week, just waiting and watching to see what happens here. But I think energy continues to perform well. It's one of the best performing sectors year to date. But I wouldn't sell it here. I would hold on to it. I'm still holding on to all the energy names, and I still think the risk is that oil sticks closer up here to $80, $90 a barrel than goes back to 60.
All right. Are you selling calls now? Is it high?
No, not
Are they
yet.
high enough for you to be selling premium?
Yeah, I like to do that to take in some premium, but I'm still waiting and watching.
Okay.
I'm tempted, but I'm not doing that yet just because of how things can erupt one way or the other.
Yeah, things happen.
The best time to sell vol is
away.
always when you get a little kind of hypertension out there. I think people have really acclimated to the idea that we've kind of created it's Iran is now Berlin, in the sense that anytime any of our enemies, and why would many countries want to be our friends, but the further removed you are from the Middle East, the more tempting it is to tweak America's nuts just by kind of helping Iran out. And so we've just got this bizarre situation where we created nothing but turmoil out of really kind of nothing at all, for reasons that are old and tired. I mean, they're looking for what? Yellow cake uranium? I mean, it's who knows what exactly is going on, but it's people have become a little, I don't know. It's again, I was as worried that the consumer is going to fall out of bed. You see prices at the pump just exploding. They didn't.
Yep.
Can that go on forever? Well, nothing goes on forever. There'll be something else. But in terms of making any real economic progress, which would ostensibly be the goal of most administrations, would be to improve things. It's hard to see a light at the end of the tunnel that isn't just a train.
Bob, why not just turn tail and go home? Too much ego?
Okay. No, but you mean sell the names and just
No, I mean the Trump administration. I'm sorry, I'm making this political, but why not just call it? We've been after these guys. They're obviously resilient. They're going to keep throwing, they're going to throw these drones and nickel and dime ammunition at our ships and others' ships. Like, just get the fuck out of there.
I mean, you can't do that now. I mean, you can't, let them win and say, let them claim. They're already claiming victory as it is, but the whole intent here is to stop them from ever developing or having a nuclear weapon. And if you turn and run now, you sort of open the door and they say, look, we had the worst case adversary ever in Trump willing to go after us when how many numerous presidents before him talked a tough game but never did anything. And if we are able to keep the biggest bulldog ever away from us, what's going to stop us now?
We can do whatever we want. Yep.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Open the door. And so I think they have to reach some sort of conclusion. I think Trump realizes that the best solution here would be to get some sort of deal with other Middle East countries involved to help enforce any sort of restrictions or measures to keep them from having a nuclear weapon. But they don't seem to, at this point, that doesn't seem to be in the cards. Again, that could change tomorrow. And you could see a tweet on, true social media saying, oh, they desperately want a deal again, and now they're serious and they mean it this time, and we're gonna get something signed. But no, I would give almost zero probability that they turn around and say, okay, we're done, we're just going to leave and let them do what they want to do. And certainly that would put Israel in a tough position too.
Yep. Okay. All right. So all you're doing right now is buying Oxy on dips. It sounds like everything
That's
else.
the only
you're
name
gonna
I'm
keep
adding to.
steady.
So I've got full positions in the other names and just holding on to those.
Okay. All right. So Jeff, we got Target, your favorite company, coming up tomorrow. Are you doing anything in front of that? It looks like expectations are pretty high, which
They're low and high. You know, you've
Yeah.
got a little bit of a whisper problem going on there. 3% comps.
Okay.
Can they do that? Well, hell yes, they can do that. It really helps that the guy who was CEO a year ago was not that good. You know, and to my point earlier, you know, what Target has done in the stores, they've improved the racetrack a little bit. They've cleaned it up. They clearly have kind of played with the amount of self-check versus register, just a lot of little wonky stuff that builds the
Yeah.
store traffic. And as a result, store traffic's been good there, just like it has been at the malls. You know, people are actually shopping. People are going out in numbers. Now, fixing something like fashion, fixing the actual nuts and bolts of the business, asking questions like, why are we selling TVs when, you know, economically we can't afford to keep more than one halftime person there and we don't carry the TVs? Those are decisions that are going to take a while longer. But I think that the current CEO, I love me a new CEO, because when you get a smart one, it's just a matter of cooking. We take Starbucks, for instance, Brian Nickel, you know, it's Starbucks and Chipotle weren't that far removed from each other operationally when he made that jump. And you can see the two just kind of distancing themselves as Starbucks finally puts its initiatives in place and turns around that huge Goliath. They've answered a lot of questions, and that's a company that I think can continue improving. And you know, just like the big ass bag, they release a purple drink and it leads to their biggest sales day in the history of the company. That's a pretty old company. It's a pretty silly drink, but that's the kind of stuff it's what companies that are hitting on all cylinders do is they're able to create some sort of excitement other than just the constant stream of complaints. So I'm not doing much in front of Target. This is
options market says there's going to be a 7% move either way. So that's for Target. That seems like a pretty big move.
That's a big move, and it's based on it. They had a pretty nice quarter last quarter. The stock didn't do much of anything. I'm not really looking at it as kind of a trading vehicle for tomorrow, just because again there's so much exogenous noise out there. With so few people on the street, you'd have to kind of strip it away and have these retailers report in a vacuum to get enormous and sustained moves. I think it's more likely that you come out with a but type of Home Depot, only better type of environment for them. You know, they're general merchants. They've got nicer stores than Walmart. They had for years, and only in the last kind of dying years of the Cornell administration as CEO did that run its course. They're not woke anymore. They're operating like a smart general merchant discounter. I expect that to continue, but like most of these retailers, again, when there's the constant threat of war out there, are you going to guide higher for the holidays? You know, that would be like
Probably
you
not.
will, but super cautiously, super, you know, it's these are sandbag by nature. A good CEO is going to leave a little meat on the bone when it comes to how's next quarter going to be. And I would expect them to do that. So I think they'll beat. I think they'll come in with perfectly fine headlines. Home Depot beat as well. You know, how's that stock doing? It's not exactly a lighting the world on fire this morning.
No.
It was at its highs up 2%. So, you know, I think that's more what you're
And what about
see,
Walmart on Thursday? Got any thoughts going into that?
You know, not really. You know, that's a new CEO who didn't come in under a distress situation, and he's got to put his imprimatur on there. Doug McMillon was borderline legend type of level CEO. He took Walmart so far so fast. You compare Target to Walmart in terms of multiples. Ultimately, what kind of drives the bus at both those companies is just selling a lot of merchandise to people. Walmart's doing a lot of really, really smart stuff. It's a terrifically well-run company. It's trading at 40 times earnings, whatever, 35. It's just expensive for what they do. And so in the Walmarts and the Costco's of the world, the key to kind of holding these really good retailers that you know, the stocks go up, they can become hot, they become sexy for a while. in the intermediate term, that's the worst thing that can happen to a Walmart because it's neither hot nor sexy by design. Not supposed to be, never supposed to be. Bentonville's not where you base a company that you want to be hot and sexy. What's hot and sexy to Walmart is if you come in with like 4 or 5% comps, the expectations are a little higher there. You know, it's when you don't miss for 40 straight years or whatever the heck it's been for them. You know, it's they've just been kind of a consistent number generator. That's really not enough to get you to break out in this market. On the other hand, some of the multiples, I was looking at Urban, that's an unbelievable looking chart, unbelievable execution. Victoria's Secret has been extraordinary. The companies that are executing this environment are finding a marketplace. So that continues to work. But in terms of Walmart, it used to be a great economic tell, but right now the outside stuff is just so loud. You know, there's so much negative, like it just news flow out there, the surveys, the sentiments, everyone likes to crap on just how the consumer is going to die. And everyone, you know, just the blanket statements that you see in financial punditry everywhere that, you know, everyone's just using their credit card, they're all going to run out of money. You know, everyone's a personal finance idiot except me, is the basic assertion. I usually want the other side of that bet when I hear someone saying that. I think that, you know, Walmart will be fine. I don't expect that stock to move. I don't think it looks very much like a stock that wants to at least visit kind of that 100 level and hang out for a while, but I think it'll just grow into its multiple and be fine. But, you know, in terms of it's what you do look at Walmart is just how impressive it is for a company that old, that kind of stately, to be coming up with things like 3-hour delivery of groceries, to be, you know, they've really, between them and Amazon, they figured out how to make that a fast delivery, almost like a pizza delivery type of business. Extraordinary accomplishment. They've taken two diametrically opposed kind of attacks towards how to do that. It's incredible. You know,
they executed on the they executed on the web van model. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
web van.
30 years of trying to penetrate the online grocery order business, right? And I mean, if you think about how long it took Amazon to get there, I mean, Webvan would have needed infinite funding basically to start from scratch and do that versus starting with 8,000 stores in the US or Amazon's fleet of vehicles. That was a rather expensive build out proposition. So, you know,
they
the
burned through a
contrast
lot of
between,
dough, including mine.
they burned through a lot of dough, but man, it's, you know, that immediate delivery thing is a big deal, and get people over the hump in terms of buying their food places they don't see. That's a big deal, but you're still in an environment where less than 30% of the product that's sold in America is sold online. People like to go to stores. I don't care if it doesn't sound like anyone else's kind of fun, but you know, it's a social experience. It's a way to spend time. There's stuff to do at the malls. Good malls will work. The bad malls are ghost towns, and that's the way God.
Like you said, the malls are still packed.
Hey, Jeff, you mentioned, you know, it's sort of funny. Not that this moves the needle or makes a difference, but you know, you mentioned Lulu with their big ass bag. Well, my dad keeps telling me he keeps going to Walmart for this big ass burrito that they sell for $1. So,
and it takes him 3 sittings to eat it.
They're getting him in the
which
store
is beautiful.
Big ass burritos for $1.
Which is beautiful, you know, and what Target's trying to get back to is they were constantly the place that, you know, I found this really nice baby dress and it's surprisingly affordable and it's cute. And that's what they're getting back to. And that's really going to be the kind of their raison d'etre. All these companies need a reason to exist, whether it's a huge burrito or in the case of Amazon, you know, I can get anything I want in an hour and a half. That's pretty impressive. But again, you know, it's the impulse items that you don't know you want, that once you figure out how to sell those. I didn't know I wanted a big ass bag until I saw it online and heard that it was a hot item. And I said, you know, this is kind of what I do for a living. I can use it, if not as a financial, but certainly an emotional tax write-off, to go ahead and buy myself a big ass bag and see what the fuss is about.
Yeah. All right, guys, before we wrap anything, before we close, we're right on the button at 7:30, so we're going to call it unless you guys have any closing thoughts.
That's it.
Nope.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, thanks for following us on Wall Street Beats. We will be back here, actually not tomorrow. We'll be back here on Thursday. Tomorrow we got the holiday conflicts and people out, so anyway, we'll be back Thursday. Have a great day, everybody. And get yourself some Einstein bars. We got a deal for people. 25% off Wall Street Beats 25 is your coupon code. Amazon and the website. Thank you for the plug, Jen. All right. Bye, guys.